Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dennis Stegwall, President of the Housing Innovation Alliance, and you're joining us for the fourth part of our Healthier Homes and Healthier Communities series. We're going to be walking through a pretty exciting conversation around the challenges and opportunities when incorporating this business model into your home building or development business. But before we get started, I just want to give you a little bit of background on the Housing Innovation Alliance. So we're a nationwide community of thought leaders focused on helping production home builders build better. And we do that with a focus on middle market housing opportunities. And we look at the focus of what we do actually would be to delayer the alternative business models, consumer engagement strategies, and the people, process, and technology behind new and advanced delivery methods. All of our programming is made possible by a collection of outstanding strategic partners. So for that, I want to say thank you to everyone involved in helping bring this programming out to our community. And as I mentioned, today is the fourth part of a series that's been going on for about 2 months now. So we started out looking at the home and the envelope in, if you will, and then we quickly moved on to the envelope out and how the home plugs into the community and looking at it from an urban planning and master planning perspective. Today, we're going to roll all that up, and with the help of Nick Hurst from the EPA, we're going to talk to our panelists about, again, what are those challenges? What are the opportunities that exist as we incorporate these strategies into our business models? So I want to say thank you to our team of panelists. I know Nick's going to introduce each of them for us, but first I want to introduce everyone to Nick Hurst in case you're not familiar with him. Nick has been in the construction industry for over 15 years. He's played a variety of roles over that time period. Today, he's currently he's an environmental protection specialist with the EPA and the program manager for the EPA Indoor Air Plus labeling program for new construction. So Nick, with that, I'm going to hand it over to you. But just quickly, I do want to add, I forgot to mention, we will be fielding questions throughout this conversation. So if you have anything you'd like to add to the discussion, please drop it into the chat box. And then myself or Paige will jump into the conversation and make sure your questions get answered. So, sorry, Nick, thanks. It's all yours.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Appreciate the invitation to do this as well. This is an exciting panel we have here. You mentioned I work at EPA. I've been there about going on 4 years, managing the Indoor Air Plus program, which is our labeling program for new homes. And it's been an exciting time. This last 6 months has been incredibly exciting for our program and for the issues of indoor air quality in general. They've really been kind of brought to light quite a bit. So we're very busy, and we're usually working with home builders, and home energy raters within our program. But we have a lot of great panelists here today in all kinds of sectors of the building industry. So I'm just going to run through some quick introductions of those folks. We have Katie Beck. Katie has been in the construction industry for about 20 years, where she's held a number of different positions, specifically with the home builder segment. And Katie's the vice president at Berkshire Hathaway Specialty Insurance, and where she's responsible for the launch of a home builder liability program. So it'll be good to have her perspectives on builder liability. We also have Jennifer Gilbert of Coldwell Banker. Jennifer is a former chair for the Alberta Real Estate Association and a current member of the National Realtor Code Committee. And she'll talk a little bit about how agents and brokers are expanding a role in providing education on sustainability and health and wellness as well. Then we have Jim Shelton. Jim began his career in the indoor air quality industry with Panasonic and has become a very well-respected authority on B2B go-to-market strategies. And he's currently working as a principal for Harmony Direct. So he's widely known for his sales and marketing and product development expertise. So great to have you here, Jim. And then we have Todd Usher, and Todd is the manager of Addison Homes, the owner of Addison Homes, and has served as a president of the Home Builders Association of Greenville, and is now an NAHB National Director and South Carolina HBA Education Chairman. So he's got a real passion about the big picture and about how to take kind of the next step in high performance homes. Todd and I have connected on a number of different occasions at conferences and other places, and it's always fun to have a builder perspective on what it means to kind of build healthy homes and market healthy homes. So that's what we're going to dive into. And thanks for joining, Todd. I think we'll start by getting some insights from you, Todd, if you don't mind, just about what you're hearing from home buyers lately surrounding the issues of healthy homes. And before the recent pandemic, I'm wondering, what were some of the kind of key questions you heard from home buyers, just regarding high performance homes, and has that changed at all?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. It's interesting that what we find is that even now, certainly when we can connect things around health and the pandemic, folks still need education. Folks still need to understand that there is the possibility to make a home healthier, and that there are differences in the practices that we can take that have substantial impact on how healthy their home might be for them. For years, we've found great case studies from past clients on things like asthma that's gone away or subsided when they move into a new home that focuses on the EPA's Indoor Air Plus program. And I think that given the current scenario, the conversations that we're having with clients are far more relevant today regarding indoor air quality and health than they ever have been.
Interesting. And what about anybody else? Is anybody else hearing from customers, from home buyers? Are there specific concerns or things that you've heard, rising to the top of the value proposition chain, so to speak? We noticed at EPA a huge uptick in kind of just website hits when we track our web traffic. So we know that consumers are becoming really engaged about indoor air quality, which is great. I'm wondering though, Todd, one more question for you before we turn to kind of some of the discussion on risks. What are buyers really asking for? What are the key things they're saying to you now?
Well, one of the things that we always lead in with when we're having an initial discussion with a prospective buyer is we'll always throw out the question. That main question is, do you or any of your family members have seasonal allergies or have asthma? And the majority of the time, it is someone in the family has issues from a health component that could easily be related to the indoor environment. So I'm very curious to hear some of the liability perspectives and risk perspectives around that, because we kind of walk a delicate line between, do we say, hey, this house is going to solve your problems? No, we don't say that. But we do say that we've had clients who have experienced much reduced instances of health issues in our homes. And so I think, there's this fine line. What claims can we make versus what expectations we set? And everyone's different. So if I tell you that your home is going to have improved indoor air quality or have a positive health impact, your perception of what that means could be quite different than what Jennifer's is. So that the balance of risk and reward there is of great curiosity to me. So far, we've never had anyone come to us and say, "Hey, you said our home was gonna solve our health issues," and it hasn't. But I think back to your initial question, what we hear and see very commonly from prospective clients is they do care about health, and most of them have experienced some challenge with health that probably is related to their indoor environment.
It sounds like you're taking a very conscientious and cautious approach to messaging it, which we appreciate at EPA, because we want builders to be excited about improving comprehensive indoor air quality protections. We also don't want them to overpromise. We also don't want them to say that just because maybe they put a mechanical device or a UV system or something in their ductwork that their homes are 99% virus free. That's a pretty tough claim to make. And so you raised that question about what insurance, what legal risks are there out there. And I'd like to hear from Katie. What do you say to builders who want to market healthy homes? Are there insurance risks? Are there legal risks to doing this?
I think anytime you're innovating in really any space, whether it be construction, product manufacturing, healthcare, any of that, any sort of innovation brings with it risk. And as an underwriter, those are the things that throw up red flags for us. I think when you're looking at building a healthy home or building a home differently, there's kind of two different pieces of risk that I would look at or analyze as a builder. One being actual construction defect risk, like real construction defect risk. So you're using a brand new system for your air quality. Are you installing that system correctly? Is it creating water issues somewhere? Is it just going in with your normal ductwork so you're not changing the construction itself? So the new products is really a construction defect risk that's out there. The other piece of it that I think we run into a little bit more with a healthy home is your perceived construction defect. Just piggybacking on exactly what you said, Todd, is what can you promise versus what is a buyer hearing that you're promising? Because those are often two different things. So if you're saying it's going to provide a healthy environment for your kids who have asthma, so they, that you could see improvement with that, and it doesn't, a homeowner may perceive that as a construction defect. You didn't deliver what you were supposed to. The home isn't performing the way it's supposed to, which could then, result in litigations and things like that. So how you package that is so incredibly important. I don't have the magic bullet on that. I definitely say talk to legal, marketing, your risk management department, all of those folks to see how you say that. But it's similar to what we saw on the energy front when you're building a more energy efficient home. What kind of promises were you making around that in terms of savings of money? With the healthy home, you can only guarantee what you're delivering, not what happens to the performance once someone moves in and they bring in a bunch of rugs and they bring in a bunch of Glade smelly stuff. And that's all going to change that healthy home. So you really need to make sure you're promising what you deliver, not necessarily the performance, because that's kind of out of your hands once someone moves in.
Right. Great points. And I assume you're kind of referring to kind of energy bill guarantees or those types of things that
right.
may still offer, which are, great incentives and perks if you can manage them appropriately. And it's certainly easier to do that than to manage, some type of implicit guarantee about a health outcome or something, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Jennifer, I'm wondering what you have to say about, so we've talked about the risks a little bit. Are there rewards though too? Is there, what is the value proposition for healthier homes? Are there potential benefits for builders that they, shouldn't have cold feet necessarily in marketing them?
Absolutely. I agree with Todd's statement that at this point, I feel like people are looking for something specific based upon something specific that's happened in their family or with their health. But as people become more informed and more educated about sustainable housing and healthy housing, or even as the resale environment continues, we're going to see people digging for more information on this. And I feel that it's so keenly important for us as real estate professionals out there to be able to help our clients be well informed in regards to this air quality system that potentially was put in 4 years ago. There's documentation, you can read about it, but is that what you're getting potentially 4 years later? When I look at the value proposition, I think the beginning point of that also has to start not just with education for the real estate professionals, but also for mortgage and appraisers to be able to find the value proposition for these builders to be able to continue to elevate the standards.
Great. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about some of the kind of the products that go into these homes as well, and a little bit about the potential. You mentioned, sort of alluded to the the maintenance that's required in a home as well. Jim, you've got tons of experience with products, and I assume with kind of like long-term warranty issues or defects or those sorts of things in working with builders. what is the biggest challenge for builders in kind of addressing the long-term, potential maintenance issues when they have new products, new bells and whistles, and innovative features going into their homes?
Well, I think that's a good question, and it's nice that we have Todd on the call, because I from my point of view, it looks like he's leading the charge. When it comes to increased warranty for homes. I mean, when you look at that, a lot of cases our cars have better warranties than our homes. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and I've followed a lot of Todd's lead, but I think a lot of it is just having the ability to have a system that monitors the home. And I know with Todd, he's looked at putting sensors in to detect moisture. But I think that's one of the obstacles to having something like that, is being able to have a comprehensive system, a smart system, a connected system, to be able to provide that monitoring that would provide the data back to a high performance builder like Todd to make sure that the home is performing. And I think if you had a system like that, I think the homeowners would be receptive to purchasing an extended warranty and working with the builder. So I think that's one of the things that I was trying to do with Panasonic is work on a comprehensive connected system to provide that kind of data and monitoring capabilities back to a builder.
Todd,
I don't think we're there yet, and we have some work to do on that as an industry.
Right. Have you dabbled in that, Todd? The world of connected devices and sensors, and how much information can you get from your previous clients that might help inform kind of how you build?
Well, I think that's that's really the next step, right? Is having the feedback loop so that we can understand how our homes are performing and really be more of a proactive partner with that homeowner for a much longer period of time. So as Jim mentioned, one of the things that we have done and continue to look into is extending our warranties and extending our relationship with that homeowner so that we are their partner, to Jennifer's point, so that when that house turns over in 4 years and maybe becomes a reseller, we're the resource that they can pull in and say, hey, can you explain how this system was designed? And can you come in and check and make sure it's working correctly? I think in a business model we're knocking around is an extended maintenance program where we would take the responsibility, of course, for a cost, but of maintaining and assuring that those systems, especially the systems that affect health, but also that affect durability and longevity of the building, are operating correctly and as designed. Because I think the concern that a lot of us high performance builders have, some of this from experience, others just from anecdotal concern, is you go into a house 10 years later and the ERV is no longer working, and so you just kind of cringe and go, could this be happening in other houses? And what are we doing to ensure that what we design in and is working on day one is working on year 10 and year 20?
Yeah.
From a product, I was just going to say, from a product point of view, there's been several research projects out there that found out that the home is not performing the way, especially on the the indoor air quality side of it. Where maybe the product or system wasn't installed properly, but then the filter wasn't changed out. The core, the ERV, the core was never cleaned, and I mean, and it doesn't take long to take a high performing system and have no maintenance, where it's actually performing worse than if there wasn't a high performance system. So I think that's a huge part of it too, and and even to a point where maybe the homeowner just disconnected it, just turned it off. So I think there's a lot of research out there that shows that, and that's where I think the monitoring really comes into play to make sure that is happening. And I think tying it into a warranty, program makes sense.
Yeah. Jennifer, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Todd's comment. And when I talk about, realtor education or educating the professionals, that doesn't mean that we need to be experts in everything. I think it's very important to know that we have to deflect back. And so maybe that education process is knowing where to go to and who to go to get the information for our clients that they require. So not saying that, the education system or our opportunities to educate ourselves, we don't want that to become a liability where we're saying we're experts in air quality. But I do feel that this sustainable housing is moving from an opportunity to be aware to a responsibility to protect our clients. So I just
great point. I want to come back to the idea that you talked about, Todd, about the kind of health as a service and kind of that extended warranty thing. But before we get there, we've talked a little bit about sensors and data, and Jim mentioned, monitoring IAQ is the next thing to kind of stepping us down the road to better performing long-term homes. And Dan, I'm wondering from your experience, what are the issues and potential risks of sharing that data? How can data be shared, first of all, with others without creating privacy concerns, with the homeowner?
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent question, and that is the question of the day. As we're grappling with COVID-19 just more generally, and workplaces to buildings are collecting potentially highly sensitive personal data, health data, these issues are just being heightened. Up to this point, I wish I had a silver bullet answer for you, but I think the best thing I could do is provide some considerations just from my work as a privacy counsel and legal engineer at a data governance company. We work with a lot of healthcare and finance companies really trying to share data for artificial intelligence purposes and analytics. So one of the key considerations is really thinking and honing in on that purpose and what is the minimal amount of data that you can achieve to get to that purpose. And that goes back to the prior conversations we just had about business value, customer value, residential value, making sure that you have evidence for what that value is and that purpose means that customers and residents are going to be more likely to be willing to share that data. So just one data point is that there was a really cool survey that Intel had done around 9,000 different consumers. And one analogy to what we're talking about here is a smart home, obviously, more generally. They found that privacy security was the #1 concern that would prevent most users from sharing their data. At the same time, if there were clear benefits around sharing that data, all the way from potentially receiving direct incentives and money, potentially lower cost insurance premiums or discounts, or even ideally in the age of COVID-19, being able to say, okay, we're monitoring sort of your health status, where people are going in the building, ideally not to such a fine-grained granularity, but if you can prove out those health benefits, more people are willing to share their data. So for money, it was 63%, and for discounts, it was 44%. So having those tangible benefits are really critical. And I think in part with that, secondarily, so the first point was this idea of what is the minimum amount of data that you can collect and analyze to achieve that validated business purpose that you care about. The second really key principle that is coming out is this idea of data protection by design. Assume that your company potentially will get hacked or some employee will leak highly sensitive data at some point. Just assume that that is the world that you're going to live in. What can you do now to make sure that data, if leaked, is going to cause the most minimal harm to others? So that's called data protection by design. It's highly critical that more and more professionals were using data to adopt this failure-based mindset. And one example is, and it's actually quite surprising the number of people who don't do this. If you're securing data, if you're storing data on the cloud, for instance, that personal health information or personal information is masked by default, or that not everyone should have access to it. It's actually, there have been some pretty stark examples where, for instance, I think it was Panera, one of these companies, they stored millions of unsecured data on the cloud, and somehow someone just came across it randomly on an Amazon server. It was like, wow, I can like look at every customer's personal information completely unsecured. It's just like the biggest companies are making this mistake. And as we're thinking about highly sensitive data, such as health data, that people may be very iffy about sharing to begin with, it's all the more critical that these things like data protection by default are being implemented. I think one last thing that I'd like to bring up is the business opportunity that's potentially available here. I think it's interesting to look at what some of the big tech companies are doing in thinking about privacy and security. It's very stark. Apple, one of the leading Silicon Valley companies of this generation, marketing geniuses are actually framing privacy as sort of their critical business value. I think they're starting to sense that people are starting to become very skeptical of the usage of technology more generally, criticisms against big tech and things like that. I think it's very interesting to see what are these marketing pros, like what are they starting to focus on? What do they see as the business angle? There's some other, I'm happy to share if you reach out, there's some other interesting data points about very few customers actually understand which companies protect their data the best. You might be thinking, okay, so maybe I don't have to care. I think it's actually an opportunity, because if you can, just like what Apple is doing, if you can share that, hey, out of this field of people who don't seem to know what they're doing around data, I can actually prove to you and demonstrate that I'm putting ethics first here. Going back to what Jennifer Gilbert was saying about the responsibility of protecting people's health, I think is directly tied to protecting people's data as well. That's a big opportunity for a lot of companies to say, hey, actually, this is a unique value proposition for you. And that's a way to just differentiate yourself. Again, looking at companies like Apple, marketing geniuses who are thinking about that as well.
Right. Great points. So lots of evolving things happening there with big data. There's kind of two there's kind of two buckets, I think, of data we're talking about. One is health data, which is would be incredibly valuable for builders to know kind of like if there are health outcomes from their homes. So we would love that for Indoor Air Plus to be able to say Indoor Air Plus homes lead to X% improvement in a number of these health metrics. We don't have that data yet, and it may be a little while before we get there. But there's also the home performance data, which is a much easier thing to get. It's becoming easier anyway, and things that probably builders can more readily access. Yet there's still some questions about IAQ monitoring and sensing and how long those types of technologies will last in a low-cost monitor or even a lab-grade monitor, how often those things need to be calibrated, et cetera. But I think we're seeing more and more opportunities for builders to utilize those to start to gain information about how their homes are performing. Todd, are you exploring any type of indoor air quality monitoring for your clients, either at their request or proactively, or is that something that you're not quite ready to?
No, we've actually actively incorporated humidity and temperature sensors in our homes for several years. It started in building closed crawl space foundations, monitoring humidity and temperatures there to try to be proactive in recognizing if there might be an issue, to putting these sensors in every home to just understand if there might be a humidity issue going on that we may want to better understand. Is that purposeful? Is that someone opening the windows on a very humid day or not? I think the next step, and Gene Myers with Thrive is kind of pushing and pioneering in this realm, is monitoring for other potential health concerns. Radon, for example, particulate matter is another that we're very interested in monitoring. Is what is the PM 2.5, the 2.5 micron and smaller particulate matter that EPA and others have recognized might have some of the most significant threat to our health. We've measured it in our homes on specific cases, and we know that our homes without occupants have far lower PM 2.5 levels on particulates. But to have some sort of monitoring device that would allow us to monitor that continuously and actually be alerted if there's some out of parameter measurement that happens, I think would be extremely powerful. Many of the things that we would want to monitor, I think, could be very, don't tie to any personal data that would be of great concern. I think, though, when you try to connect the dots to the health outcomes with the building performance data, then you could definitely be in some challenging waters. I don't know many people that would sign, an personal information security form with their builder. I think trust is challenging enough with builders in the industry today.
Is that your sense too? I mean, would you agree with that? Tough to get that information or a commitment from a home buyer, and even if you would, does that cover you, as a builder?
Sorry, Nick, did you kick that to me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, you cut out just for a second there. I think that from an insurance carrier standpoint, we are absolutely asking a lot of questions about data security. It is something that we look at how that coverage comes into play with the release of personal and personal information. Within the construction space, you also have the electronic data, not just the cloud data, but then the electronic data, like if you hit a T-line when you're digging. So there's a couple different ways that we look at how construction affects electronic data. I think, to piggyback on what we were talking about with like the maintenance and how that would work, I think a huge benefit of that for the builders is it gets you in those houses every 6 months or once a year, whatever that looks like. We know from construction defect that people don't maintain their homes now. I don't maintain my home very well now, and I know better. They're not recaulking showers. They're not going through and doing some of the simple maintenance. So as the systems continue to get more and more complex, building that maintenance in is not a bad thing. It gives you eyes on not just those complex systems, but everything else in the house. Is there a spot where it looks like the plumbing might be leaking? The drywall is starting to look a little funky. Can we get in there and start to look for other things that may be wrong with the homes? That is a cost to the builders for sure to have that type of service, because a lot of times you can't charge necessarily what you're really needing to pay to have those things done. But on the back end of it, I think when you go to your carrier and you're saying, this is why you insure me, that's a really big benefit. Is if I know my builders are continuing to be in those houses and have eyes on them and have relationships with those homeowners, that only helps what those long-term construction defects costs could be. So the data is one side of it. Collecting that data and how you protect it is definitely something you get questions on. But I think the other side of that is being in those houses definitely helps. And I would assume that would help a bunch for resale for, as a realtor, Jennifer, being able to say, this house has been serviced by the builder for the last 6-7 years. Here's the records. I mean, you've bumped up that resale value, I would assume.
Yeah, you would hope so anyway. Thinking about that model of sort of health as a service, or kind of long-term engagement with the customer, with the home buyer. What's really involved with that? And Todd, maybe you could help us. We all kind of know what a service contract with an HVAC company looks like. They come in and change your filters and kind of do some diagnostics. But if the builder's taking that on, what's kind of the first few steps of that? Who's involved? Do you have a bunch of subcontractors that you're engaging with, or is it all in-house? How's it work?
Well, I think that there's two ways you could take that, or combinations of the two. So subcontractors, so trade partners that are, say, the HVAC contractor. So from our standpoint, we're starting to have discussions with, for example, our HVAC contractor, and we're saying, we don't want your sticker on the unit when you install a new system in one of our homes. We're going to have our sticker on the unit, but we're going to guarantee you X number of service contracts. So how about on nearly every home we sell, we're going to market actively a service contract. And so you don't have to do that on hopefully the first service call that you ever get from this client. We're going to do that for you. But in exchange for that, you're not going to start calling on that client directly it's going to be through us. So it's a bit of a shift to their business model and to their way of thinking. But in my view, we're the builder. No one knows that house as a system better than we do. And so the worst thing that could happen, an example of the worst thing that could happen in our view is the homeowner calls XYZ HVAC contractor 2 years after we built the home for them. We're not involved anymore. That contractor doesn't understand the ins and outs of the high performance system that we installed and begins to tell the homeowner that there are problems with this system and gives them a proposal to replace it with a completely different system that they're more comfortable with. And by being in that home, as Katie was talking about, every 6 months, we would bring on, I think logically, the HVAC maintenance, the seasonal maintenance on HVAC, the termite treatment. We're in a very heavy termite infestation area. So the termite bond and contract, we could route any of this through the builder from the get-go, from the beginning, and incorporate that as part of this health as a service, performance as a service. You don't have to worry about it. We'll take care of it for you. And we're every time we go into a home, we're taking our thermal camera and we're just doing a quick scan of the house. If a water spot shows up on the roof before a brown stain is shown, we've just avoided a potential issue that most likely will just get more costly and more costly the longer it goes unresolved.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just wondering, I'm like, how do we start working towards the standards for something like that to, have that be elevated in the building environment or, in the resale environment? Is it podcasts like this? What's the value proposition to move this forward?
I think these discussions, sorry, Nick, to jump in. I think these discussions are a great place to start. I think there's a lot that we can learn from the car industry. Jim mentioned earlier, extended warranties, service plans for our cars, which are typically, our most important investment, our most expensive investment is our home. The second most is typically our vehicle. We've just proposed to a client that we have a past client who's about to sell her house. We've proposed coming in and doing a certified pre-owned home, a certified pre-owned Addison home. Let us come in, do a blower door test, do a duct test, recertify the home, and make sure it's working as it was designed to work. And then you use that as the sales tool for selling your home. I think we start with these discussions and hopefully it builds from there.
Yeah. I want to turn it back to Dennis at some point soon to see if there's any questions that are coming in, because I think we could probably continue this conversation quite a bit. But before we do that, Jim, any other thoughts just about where you think the industry needs to go, particularly kind of with regard to kind of the mortgage industry and lenders, real estate agents, appraisers? Are there things that we could help educate on that would really impact the bottom line for builders and the value of healthy homes?
Well, I think that's a good question, and it is really the reason I left Panasonic is my experiences with Panasonic, and I had a unique experience of leading the indoor air quality division, from a sales, marketing, and product development point of view. I think we have there's just a problem with the industry, and the industry is really kind of antiquated, and it doesn't really work. The industry, and I'm talking about the value chain, it really doesn't work for indoor air quality. The problem is that the industry and the value chain and really the wholesale distribution system for building products creates barriers that no one meant for their barriers to be. But the biggest problem is manufacturers don't have a direct relationship with builders like Todd Usher. or Gene Myers. And we're separated. There's barriers between, especially on the HVAC or indoor air quality, the typical manufacturer's rep doesn't call on builders. He calls on the wholesaler. And the wholesaler doesn't call on builders either. They call on contractors. And so, the two people that need to get together, the two groups are the builders and the manufacturers working directly together and working with the partners, but they're separated. And it's at a point where, the manufacturers' channel partners don't want the manufacturers to talk to the builders, but that has to happen. I mean, so the industry has to change, and there has to be open innovation. And builders and manufacturers need to come together in a collaborative, direct partnership, and for innovation. And innovation to be able to do the things we're talking about today, to develop, solutions and product and systems to enable us to get where we need to go, and to provide the homeowners, that healthy home or healthier home, that they need. So that needs to happen, and that's really why I left Panasonic and founded Harmony Direct, which is a innovation agency, which doesn't exist in the industry today, but it's a agency that's designed to help builders and manufacturers innovate, and really we represent the builder. I'm an innovation agent for the builder. I represent the builder, and I think that needs to happen. And then the other side of it is that that really no one talks about, is trying to make healthier homes and indoor air quality more affordable, which is a big problem too, because not only does that value chain block and is a barrier to innovation, it also adds a lot of cost where there's no value. So that's the other thing that needs to happen, is that the value chain needs to be optimized, and where there's areas where there's no value. I mean, when I look at it, it's up to 60% of margin that's in there that's going to Todd Usher, where there's in a lot of cases there's no value there. So the value needs to be removed, and the value chain needs to be optimized, and that will help drive down not only the cost of developing, but also designing, and more importantly, just as importantly, delivering that system to a homeowner. I saw with Panasonic, I had a system I was working on that by the time the homeowner got it, it was like 4 times more expensive than the price that we would actually sell it to a builder. So I think the industry has to evolve and change, and we all need to work. And this is everybody, right? This is from an education point of view. When I say the industry, it's everybody that's represented here today. Needs to work together collaboratively to be able to, like I said, come up and deliver those affordable, healthy home solutions. So I think that's, no one's talking about that, but I mean, I saw it firsthand, and it needs to happen.
Yeah, great note. So we have, kind of supply chain sorts of challenges, and as well as the data challenges that we discussed earlier, and of course the opportunities to kind of create more benefit for homeowners through more substantive engagement with them. So lots of interesting things to tackle. Dennis, any specific questions that you have coming in that would be helpful to explore?
Yeah, no, this has been a fantastic discussion, and glad to see all the different perspectives coming into the conversation. I think one of the things that we've heard consistently over this series is the need for education across all stakeholder groups. So I'd just like to kind of reach out, maybe go around the room and involve you as well, Nick, and we'll start with Jennifer. But I'm curious, from the audiences that you're working with, where do you turn to for education? And I lean on Jennifer first, because I know you've been actively involved in the Canadian Realtors Association and establishing professional standards and ongoing education curriculum for sustainability. So I'm kind of just curious, what's your go-to resources, or what do you want to see more of, so that we can kind of put a call to action out there for our community?
Well, I'm pretty excited about the new partnership that the Alberta Real Estate Association has with RISE for their sustainable housing class that we're now offering to all of our membership. But beyond that, I feel like just continuing education. I feel that with our polytechnic education that we're moving forward with in Alberta, that we're going to have access to so many other amazing tools to be able to bring to our clients. So I'm just going to say raising the bar, podcasts and WebExes like this. And I guess just the culture and awareness within the Realtor brand that this is going to become a responsibility for us to have a basic sense of awareness. And I feel that in the future, our clients are going to be asking for it. If you're out and you show 10 houses and one of them has energy efficient appliances, Energy Star appliances, or a Nest thermostat, all of a sudden, as you continue your shopping journey, they don't want to see anything else that doesn't have that equipment. So it's a mindset change for our clients. And then for us as realtors to be able to advise them of the proper places to go to get the information they need. So I'm looking forward to raising the bar and having realtors be aware of all of the different type of health concerns in their areas. And I wanted to follow up on one of the comments Todd said, termites in one certain area or radon perhaps in one certain area. But that's going to be a broad perspective of learning across the board for us in all of the different areas that we potentially serve.
Great. Nick, where's your go-to resource? So what do you recommend that we would kind of share with our community?
Obviously, I would love to steer people towards EPA's indoor air quality website with our indoor environments division. We have a lot of great partners out there in the industry doing what Jennifer said, doing a lot of online learning and webinars lately. ASHRAE is one organization that's actually put up a lot of really good content about indoor air quality. Very quickly after the COVID pandemic started, they were working very actively with a number of volunteer industry folks who have been doing this for a long time, trying to get the best information out there for how to cope with a crisis like we've been experiencing the last 6 months, but also more generally in terms of indoor air quality too. So they have a lot of great resources on their website, and also an annual conference that was virtual this past June. Some great technical resources there. One other one, just a plug for the Energy and Environmental Building Alliance. The EBA Summit is happening right now, just kicked off today for 2 weeks. It's usually a 3-day event, but it's spread over 2 weeks with a lot of online sessions. So Todd and Jim and some others have been involved with that too. So they do some really great training as well. I'll stop there and let somebody else jump in.
All right, great. Katie, you're smiling. Where do you go, or what do you need us to create for you so that you can do your job better?
So I think I'm in a little unique situation being on the insurance carrier side. A lot of people that are insurance underwriters don't consider themselves part of the industry. So our training is usually an additional insured seminar or how claims have gone and the legal implications of various claims. But I have found, especially over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, I've gotten more from understanding the industry of home builders to help me figure out how to provide good coverage for those builders. So things like this, working with builders, walking job sites, figuring out what they're doing differently when they decide they want to do something different and unique, instead of shutting that down and saying, well, it's different and unique, so we're going to exclude that from your coverage, really understanding what they're doing and how they're going about it so we can make sure that we're providing coverage for that. So when you're building a healthy home, when you're building a spec home that's very technically driven, when people have started doing panelization as we've been exploring the smaller spaces and how the affordability things, to me, really understanding the industry has been very important in how I can figure out how to cover appropriately from an insurance standpoint those builders. So, anything like this, I've been kind of soaking up over the last few years.
Okay, excellent. Dan, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I guess just more broadly, one resource that I've been following has been the Affordable Housing Institute has been doing some interesting things around this concept of health secure housing. It's a little more specific than the conversation here, as they're specifically looking at things like COVID-19 and public health and how to tie in construction and design of buildings and management of buildings. I think they're talking a lot about to property managers to think about how you can do things like monitor air ventilation or design common spaces to be more outside. How do you change the materials being used for things that lots of people are going to be touching? to reduce the spread of things like COVID-19. So I'd recommend Affordable Housing Institute. My background is obviously a lot more data related, but I would say if you're just generally more interested in health data concerns, if that's something that you end up going more into in terms of trying to tie in the performance and the health outcomes, the Future Privacy Forum is a fantastic resource around thinking about health, the cutting edge of health data privacy.
All right, thanks, Dan. And Jim.
Well, once again, I think this is an industry discussion, and it's good that the industry is having a discussion today. And I look at one of the issues is a standard, right? Having a standard out there to kind of align behind, and really the only one I'm aware of is NICS, as far as a standard. But I really think that the EPA, EBA, Housing Innovation Alliance, everyone that really gets involved, with education needs to work with the manufacturers and the building member and come together as an industry and try to come up with some approved education, for everybody involved, with the homeowners, real estate agents, it could be skewed but I think we have the capability of doing it if we all came together and did that. But I see a lot of training out there, and a lot of it ends up, coming from maybe a manufacturer, and it's skewed towards their product. And, I think it needs to be generic and it needs to be industry approved. But I think it would be, it needs to be kind of a joint effort with everybody involved and come up with something. And then the other thing we have to look at is ways of delivering it and trying to get it into, areas where people can actually find it really easily. Nothing wrong with your website, Nick, but then you start, looking at, people when they go Google thing, they go to Amazon, 65% of the time. Is there ways that we can work, to get that kind of information, across, kind of omni-channel approach too. But I think it's a big project, but I think we could do it if we all, if everybody that cares about education and tries to deliver education would come together and have a joint project. It would be a good thing for Housing Innovation Alliance to lead the way, Dennis.
Thanks for the challenge, Jim. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Big challenge, but I think it could be done. I think everybody wants it. I think it's necessary. It's just, we just have to come together as an industry to get it done.
Yeah, much appreciated. And Todd, kind of saved you for last as the person we're all working with. You're the face of the customer. You're training your team. How are you? What are you doing here in this area? Where do you turn to? What do you need from us?
Well, where we turn depends on what information we're after, but let's face it. We're in the COVID new reality, which has been a disruptor for collaboration and communication. Look at us. We're here together on a Zoom call, and I'm gonna get off this Zoom call and go to a virtual conference that I would have ordinarily had to buy a plane ticket and a hotel and taken 3 days out of my schedule to do. I think we've got a ripe opportunity to use these new tools of collaboration to bring each other together. And much as Jim said, it's not just one industry too. It is multiple industries serving one industry that ordinarily have not communicated and have definitely not innovated together. So, that I think is the key here is we've got to collaborate and innovate. Probably some keywords from the Housing Innovation Alliance, right? But it's true. And I think ultimately where we can cross over into the insurance industry with Katie and the realtor community with Jennifer and create multifaceted opportunities for education on all of these different levels of influencers that ultimately can bring this industry along is key. We've started making YouTube videos in our company, making YouTube videos that are educational. So hopefully our clients are going and checking those out and understanding why we do what we do, what the difference is in a high performance system versus not. What are the important aspects of that? And, I ask my kids questions all the time, and they say, "Have you Googled that, Dad? Or have you gone to YouTube?" And, it's a paradigm shift, right? We have a new reality that's gonna require a new worldview on all of our parts to decide how we can advance these opportunities that will ultimately bring better, more healthy housing to the market.
Excellent. No, you can certainly see a few opportunities for us to dig deeper into this conversation as a continuation of this panel. We're just about out of time, so I want to hit two more questions that floated into the Q&A box here, and then we'll wrap things up. So this one's for you, Todd. It's from Ari. Have you explored any partnerships with local utility companies to help incentivize new home builders?
We have tried, and I shouldn't really give that a whole lot of credit. It's been a few years. I think where I have felt challenges with connecting with the utilities is we're a really small fish and in a really big utility pond, and the incentive for them is not great to influence a smaller number of homes in their service area than not. But I think there's huge opportunities to pull the utility component into this whole discussion as well, because they have a great opportunity with data. To Dan's point, I mean, they're harvesting data from smart meter technology and so forth that could probably be integrated in this whole collaborative approach.
Good, thank you. Anybody want to add to that? Partnering with utility companies while we're on the conversation?
I can add to that briefly. I think utilities, have historically been concerned about energy efficiency, and that's where their incentives have been pushing more than towards healthy homes. But in the last year, we've gotten some inquiries at EPA from both small and large utilities saying, "Hey, what is Indoor Air Plus about? And how can we educate our clients about this? Is this something they need to know about?" I don't know that they've rolled out incentive programs yet for labeled homes. It's a huge part of how the Energy Star program took off in the 90s and early 2000s by having those utility partners out there providing some of those incentives that folks mentioned earlier on the call. But I think that's coming as utilities are recognizing there's more to it than just saving kilowatt hours now. We need to figure out what the next step is to really helping our customers.
Yeah, great, excellent, thank you. Appreciate that from both of you. Last one. So this has been a great conversation with so many areas to grow and innovate in. The question is, if the strategy needed to move towards healthy homes, is it different for existing homes, so retrofit projects, versus new homes? And can you just highlight a few of the challenges that each market might pose? So maybe Jim, if you want to start with this one.
There is a difference. I think when you're looking at new construction, it's a blank slate, and you can design the appropriate system, and you can make sure that you can incorporate all aspects of a healthy home into it. I think when you look at an existing home, then there you have some some obstacles to try to overcome, and some limitations with how much you can do. I know even looking at it from the Panasonic system that we are developing, that was a very different system for existing homes. Are you going to be able to add the kitchen ventilation? Is the range hood? Are they going to replace the range hood? Probably not. How much new equipment are they going to put in? How much access to inside the walls and things. So I just think it's different. I mean, it's similar, and there is a tremendous opportunity on a bigger opportunity than new construction for existing homes. It's just different. The way you would go about it would be different. It's a different game plan, and the home performance contractors really come into play in that scenario. And I think in the monitoring and sensing come in too, because now you can do before and after, right? You can put in the monitor sensing capability for a couple of weeks, monitor the system, look at potential problems, put the system in, and then monitor afterwards and actually show that, hey, we delivered a healthier home. So it's related but different, and a tremendous opportunity too for existing homes.
Great. Nick?
Yeah, sure. I'll take a stab at that one too. I mean, I think Jim's right. It's a different animal. And yet the same principles apply in existing homes as they do in new construction. And it's source control, first and foremost, and then filtration and ventilation as additional strategies. And the tools to get there to combine all those are different in existing homes for sure. You might not be able to deal with source control in the exact same ways as you could as how Todd's doing it because he's starting with a clean slate. But yeah, the principles are there. We've been actively working on a specification for Indoor Air Plus existing homes to be able to label existing homes because our management for the last couple of years has said this is such a huge opportunity in the market. There's millions of homes out there that need those improvements, many more than the new homes that are going up. And yet, how do we incentivize that? And we think there are ways to do that. And it might not be a specification that looks apples to apples like the Indoor Air Plus new construction program does now. But as Jim mentioned, there's home performance contractors out there who are going into homes, doing assessments, doing duct testing and air sealing. And those are two really important first steps to, making a healthier home. And while you're doing that, let's look for moisture concerns. Let's check out what type of filtration system you have in your HVAC system, and how can we get improved ventilation in your home? And there's a number of different ways to do that. And yeah, it's going to cost you. There's no doubt. You might not be able to do it, overnight. But with a little bit of help with a home performance contractor or a consultant, a homeowner could make those improvements, that really do give them kind of a stamp of approval that they could potentially sell later. So,
yeah, one big difference is the tight construction, right? I mean, when you look at new construction, the homes are being built, very, very tight. And when you get in existing homes, you get into homes that, that aren't as tight and you have, more infiltration, of air coming in and, it changes things. But yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. It's just different. I agree.
Good. All right. Well, I think that'll just about wrap us up. Unless anyone has any final thoughts they'd like to share with the community before we close. No, pretty exhaustive. Good. All right. Well, fantastic. Want to say thank you to everyone that participated in the panel and to the entire audience that joined us and was willing to hang in there for an extended version. Just wanted to share some highlights of what's coming up next within our community. So we have, first and foremost, I want to just highlight, we have a podcast series that does supplement these coffee talks. So you can check that out online through our website and through your typical source, whether it be Spotify or iTunes. You can access that information there. We also have one of our first post-COVID road trip, if you will. Typically, we would take an entire group of our community members out into high growth areas across the country. This time, it's going to be Betsy and I, and we're going to be capturing content to bring it back to you. And we'll continue to collect, let's say, questions from our audience about the visits that we're going to have. We're going to be visiting Icon, the 3D printing organization. We're going to be visiting with Matt Reisinger and check out his passive house project that's under development, and we'll be visiting with Village Farms. So that's going to happen early next week. So if you have anything you'd like us to ask or anything specific you want us to capture, please shoot it over our way. I also want to highlight some additional think tanks that are going to be coming up ahead of our annual Innovation Summit, which is happening November 10th and 11th. So we have 4 think tanks outlined there in the upper right-hand corner. Opportunity basically to dig deeper into conversations that will ultimately end up and get rolled up and summarized in the Innovation Summit. So the Healthy Homes think tank is a continuation of today's discussion. And then we'll get into customer engagement, digitization, and industrialization that will be, again, influencing and informing what we're going to talk about at the summit. So those are basically program council, work group type conversations to inform the content that will roll out to the broader community. Next page. All right. And this is just a quick visual of how things are going to unfold leading up to that Innovation Summit on November 10th and 11th. So it will be a virtual event. It will be starting at, it's going to be about a 6-hour program starting at 11 o'clock, going to 5 p.m. both days. Leading into the event, we will have a LinkedIn Live keynote with the team from developing Whisper Valley Taurus Investment Holdings. So the CEO of that group will be with Dave Cooper going through, again, LinkedIn Live as a way to broadcast and kind of create some attention for what we're going to be showing you at the Innovation Summit. And again, we're highlighting the think tanks that will be leading up to those conversations. So with that, again, thanks everybody for joining us. It's been great to have you this morning and this afternoon, and look forward to seeing you at a future event.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.